Hey guys. Hello toy fans. I've got the entire Minibrands Create series and all the weight hacks you want for always getting the products you want and no doubles. I bought 3 full cases and we have so much to talk about. I found a major flaw with this new product, like huge. This is a big deal. Like, I'm concerned for Zuru at this point. I mean it, this is not clickbait. You absolutely need to know before you buy this product. There is a lot to love. And if I'm being honest, a couple things I really hate. Don't worry because I'm holding nothing back. Plus, later in the video, I'll get into the uncomfortable run-in I had with a Target employee. I really don't think I'm ever going back to that store. I'm pretty upset about it. I mean, toy hunting is supposed to be my happy place. Plus, I mean, you guys know I love Miniverse products. Like, love them. But I have to tell you, I've never gotten actually hungry when I was working with resin. Until now, you have never seen miniature resin food look like this before. So, the good, the bad, and the possibly product ending. We've got 11 exciting new minis to cover. Of course, we've got the weight hacks for every product in the line. So, I open them and show them off. We're about to find out how these brand new products stand up against our beloved Miniverse. I've got all of them here, including the ultra rare. So, let's do this. Babe, I've been editing for like 72 hours straight. Can you roll my intro? Crafty Magic Dolls content is intended viewing for adults who collect toys and dolls. Content, topics, and discussions are intended for adult collectors and not for f***ing kids. But hey, at least you've been warned. So the very first thing that we're going to do is take a look at the items that are the same across the entire series, the things that you get with all 11 products. I do really want to tell you about the major flaw that I found, but I'm kind of thinking that I'll let you run into the problem where I ran into the problem while I was filming last night, while I was actually putting together these 11 brand new items. First up, the things that you get that are the same with every item. The first thing we get is this adorable chef's hat. And no, it's not just an adorable hat that's too small for my head. I mean, it is cute, but it's tiny. Seriously though, along with this chef's hat, we get the item that we never got from Miniverse, the UV light necessary to cure the items. Now I know if, like me, you're probably trying to buy all 11, thinking, do I really need 11 UV chef's hats? It would have been really cool if they were different colors or something, but I'm still happy that we got them. And don't forget, always wear protective glasses when we're working with a UV light because that light's bright and it's not great for your eyes. Maybe they'll be creative and in series number 2 we'll get something a little different. And yes, if you're wondering if I actually tried using the UV light as compared to the UV flashlight that I usually use, I absolutely did. And I have a verdict. I prefer my high-powered flashlight. It's definitely better at getting the job done and much more thoroughly. I mean, I figured that would be the case. My flashlight was definitely more expensive than this little underpowered UV light that comes in the kit, but still, I mean, I appreciate that we at least got one. It's better than working with the sun. Okay, now I need to be honest with you. There are definitely times that I side-eye other creators when they, let's just say, they don't read the directions.
It also comes with the shelf. Let's put it on the shelf. Ooh. Do they both fit on the shelf? Am I using the shelf wrong? I feel like I am. I have no idea how to use this shelf, but this looks good.
Yep, perfect. No notes. But I definitely did read the directions and I still don't know what this thing is for. And it comes in every set. It might just be to keep paper items from bending, but if it belongs to anything else, somebody's gonna have to fill me in. And seriously, no hate to that creator. She's massively more popular than I am. I'm just being silly. Okay, so next up we get this MasterChef branded placemat, this orange square in every set. Again, this could have been a space for some creativity, but I also understand why they were keeping it the same. And I really do like the cake stand, even though we get the same one in every set. We didn't get a cake stand with every single Miniverse item, and there will be no choosy beggars here. I mean, I guess we did get the tables with some of the larger sets, but I prefer this. And who knows, maybe they'll change it up a little bit for Series 2. Speaking of consistency, we also get these tweezers. I've never been a fan of the Miniverse tweezers, but I will say I did actually use multiple pairs of these when I was making the sets. And I do think I actually like these a little bit more than the Miniverse ones. Next up, I'm going to discuss cutlery. So we don't get the same things in every single item, but I did want to show them off next to the Miniverse items just so you could get an idea of the scale and how they might work with a doll. And yes, this is one from each brand, and yes, they are different, with the Minibrands fork being just a tiny bit wider. Okay, so let's get into it. On to the first item. In no particular order, let's start with, let's do the ramen first. I really want to start with one where we have a direct one-to-one comparison for Miniverse, so we can really dive into the differences. The recipe's official name is pork belly ramen. I have personally opened about 14 of these, and the weight comes in very close to 125.41 grams. P.S. If you've never seen one of my videos before, you can get the links to the products that I use, like this incredibly high-powered UV flashlight, or my favorite incredibly accurate scale, and in the description below the video. Okay, so we've seen ramen before. It was one of the most popular food items that Miniverse has ever made. So how does the new MasterChef Minibrands Create stack up? We're definitely not giving Zuru or Minibrands a break here, starting with probably one of the hardest to live up to Miniverse ever made. Let's start by taking a look at the bowls. My right hand, on the left side of your screen, we've got the Miniverse option. A clear soup bowl with a plastic rim. Looks very similar to any bowl that I've ever had at a sushi place or ramen shop, which I guess makes sense. I really like the fact that you can see the soup on all sides, and it also makes it easier to cure the resin, which ends up being a really important point later on. On the other hand, quite literally, my left one, Minibrands went with an orange and black bowl. with matching chopsticks. Well, actually, I should say chopstick, because unfortunately they gave us one molded together piece. Miniverse definitely has the leg up on this one because I definitely prefer actual usable chopsticks to one molded together piece that a doll can't even hold properly. And you definitely can't position it to pick up food. As beautiful as the packaging and the products are, this was like my first really negative that I'd noticed with the Create line. I know I have a few extra sets of ramen because they were on the outside packaging as a promo item. Remind me later, I've got a story to tell you about those promo items. So I definitely have extra chopsticks, but I really didn't want to start stealing things from Miniverse already to make the Minibrands recipe. I wanted to find a solution I could live with that I also felt good recommending to you guys. I really looked at that pair of chopsticks molded together and I thought to myself, I think I can fix this. If you're going to come along on this wild ride with me, you're going to need a cutting board and a sharp X-Acto knife. See, and that's why this channel's not for kids. Starting in the center and slicing towards the end, I managed to cut the chopsticks apart, but you do have to be really careful. They are very thin, you're cutting through actual wood, your fingers are right there, but in the end, I ended up with 2 chopsticks. So mission accomplished. Now we can eat ramen. Well, first we should make the ramen. So let's get started on that. At least I know that when this recipe's done and we've got our award-winning MasterChef ramen, we also have a nice fancy painted pair of chopsticks, unlike the ones that Miniverse gave us. But you do have to keep in mind that one side of them is not going to be colored now that you've cut them apart. So you might want to touch them up with a little bit of acrylic paint. There's a reason this channel is called Crafty Magic Dolls. I don't mind putting in the work, but I think it goes without saying that this step is totally optional. Alright, enough with the stuff, let's look at the actual food. Starting with the actual ramen noodles. I figured that was a good place to start. I think the elf spaghetti and the ramen noodles were like absolutely my favorite items because they were so realistic. I'm really excited to see what Minibrands did. I can eventually imagine an entire line of just pastas. I have to say I'm really excited cutting into this bag. And the bag is sealed, by the way. It's not just folded over, it's actually sealed closed. Our first actual food product from Minibrands. Oh, well that's a thing. The pasta is just one big round, like, lump. And we also get 2 squares of seaweed. I do like the seaweed, they definitely have the color right, but I wish it wasn't just like 2 full sheets of nori because you don't really see that with ramen. And this, I'm not really happy about this. I mean, on one hand, we have the solid colored bowl, so you're not really gonna see the bottom, but it's just one big block of pasta. And trust me, I wanted to love this. I wanted to love everything that Minibrands did. But like, I'm really not excited about this. Let me know down below. Are you surprised they went this route? Zuru can have such incredible attention to detail in certain situations, and so this really disappoints me. Especially when the ramen that we got with the Miniverse items is so good. You want to talk about attention to detail and like really nailing it? Take a look at this. This is what ramen should look like. Take notes, Zuru. Maybe it seems like I'm being a little harsh. I mean, seriously, I do love Minibrands. I've got all of them. But this is the thing. I have a high standard. I really do. I mean, I think the reason that we all love miniatures is because we're really passionate about the details. And when it comes to making tiny pasta, I know they could do better. I mean, I even know it's not that expensive, and here's how I know. Despite my better judgment, I recently placed an order with Temu for a bunch of miniature items. And one of the things I ordered was miniature pasta. I wasn't sure what I was going to get. For just a little over $1, I got this whole round piece of pasta. It was all loose noodles. I was easily able to separate them. It's even thinner and finer than the elf spaghetti. It's stretchy, it's incredibly detailed, it's very lifelike. And honestly, it's way better than this. So I did the very reasonable and rational thing. The same thing anyone would do that just spent $9.99 on a brand new toy. I decided to completely deviate from the directions and go off on my own. So let me get the Miniverse items out of here and let's actually give Zuru a chance and we'll make the ramen. You know, with some minor adjustments. Do you think I should have just followed the instructions? You can let me know. You won't hurt my feelings. Oh, before I go get those better noodles, let's open and inspect the other ingredients. If I'm going to need a bunch of my own crafting supplies to make this ramen look good, I might as well find out all at one time. So the next thing is green onion. I'm hoping we get a bunch of tiny little pieces, kind of like chives. I feel like this should be a really easy ingredient to make. Heck, I'd be fine with a powder or a sand like we got with the Miniverse ramen. We did not. It's another molded little lump of ingredients. Bummer. I mean, I really feel like this limits your creativity with the dish. You're basically just forced to stack them on top of each other and pour the resin over the top. Between the single chopstick, the noodles, and now this, you can't make a frozen moments, you can't position the food to look like it's being eaten, you just are going to be stuck with a very static display. I know I said that I wanted our first Miniverse versus Minibrands Create experience to be a head-to-head battle, but that's because I thought we were starting off strong. I thought this was going to be a battle. I didn't think that Zuru and Minibrands were going to get blown out of the water. I know a lot of you, like me, have been eagerly and impatiently awaiting these, and I really hope that this does not set us up for the rest of the series, because if this is what everything is like in this set, I'm going to be really disappointed. Alright, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Let's take a look at the protein. Okay, now this is better. This is more along the lines of what I was expecting. First, we've got these pieces of meat, the pork belly, and like the Miniverse, we've got eggs. Well, technically 1 hard-boiled egg cut in half. With the mini brands, we get brown eggs, and with the Miniverse, we've got white ones. I think they both look great. I actually love the brown chicken eggs. I think that gives it a little bit of variety and makes it a little different. Do you have a preference? And I do have to give big points to Zuru here, because as much as I like Happy Sun Farms, I think the Mini Brands product packaging is actually fantastic, like the miniature products that are inside of the capsules. If we were giving points to each side, the points on this round would definitely go to Mini Brands. The labels look great, and I like the non-transparent packaging actually, especially for the meat products. It just feels a lot more grown up, elevated, elegant, and realistic. And I have to admit, as much as I like toys, they're a lot less toy-like. And that's okay. I really am glad that they're different. After all, we're talking about dishes that have been improved by this guy, Gordon Ramsay, and I know he's always a friendly little kitten on his TV shows, laughing and joking around with the contestants on Hell's Kitchen, but he does seem pretty passionate about food.
No, don't fuck with me.
Oh, I forgot, Miniverse had the spoon too. I guess they get bonus points for that. Okay, so we need to talk about the broth, or, the resin, because after all, this is a resin craft kit at the end of the day. First things first, while we are going to see some different types of resin in this series that we have never seen before in the Miniverse world, including several products that come with more than one kind of resin, some of the MasterChef mini brands come with the typical UV resin that you're already used to if you're familiar with the Miniverse. Oh, and the Mini Brands resin bottles can actually peel the tops off by hand. Seriously, for a miniature enthusiast and crafter that's got serious arthritis in her hands, this was a really big deal. Especially since I have a bunch of tiny ingredients to chop up. Like, for example, sheets of nori that I thought would look much better sliced into thin ribbons. For real, if you don't have a great X-Acto knife set, definitely get one. Oh, and I figured since I was going all out, I'm gonna cut the protein up too. I'm gonna cut the pork belly up like 2 different ways, some chopped up into real little bites, and then a couple pieces I'm gonna leave longer. I think it'll give the ramen a much more realistic look, but I definitely need to start by doing something with these noodles. Tried cutting some of the bottom layer off because I figured you're not really going to see it in the bowl at all, but it was definitely looking more like sliced mozzarella, not so much like noodles. So I rated the stash I got from Temu. I promise when you see the final product, you're not gonna regret it. As a matter of fact, you might find that my way is actually better. I mean, I usually feel that way about things, but my husband assures me not everyone agrees. I'm gonna put their noodles in the bottom of the bowl, but I'm gonna cover them with the loose noodles from Temu. And this is where it starts to get exciting because we're actually making the food now. Also, just a quick side note, not every recipe is gonna be this long, I promise. Most of them are actually much shorter. Okay, the noodles are in, let's check out this broth. I'm gonna give it a little stir, both to coat the noodles that are on top and to also make sure that there's no air bubbles underneath of the noodle patty that you get. So you wanna make sure that you've got resin in there and that you're not leaving space to trap air that'll bubble up after you start curing the resin. I'm layering in all my ingredients and I'm stealing a few from the Miniverse anyway. I figure I've changed this thing so much there's no going back. Oh my god, I love this stuff so much in real life, I'm definitely adding it. And ultimately that leads me to my review of this ramen. I mean, I think my end result looks great. I'm not quite done yet, but I think it looks really good. And there's definitely a lot to really like about this new line of products. And this is just the first item I've tried. Like, legitimately, I waited to do this on camera with you guys. Are there some things about the ramen specifically that I would change? Yeah, definitely. I definitely wouldn't want to review the entire product based on this one item either. Especially since this is a recipe that we basically have 1-for-1 the same in the Miniverse. What I'm excited to see, what I'm really excited to see, is the things that make this line different. But first, since Mini Brands is the one that came up with the whole frozen moments concept, or at least the name for these incredible minis, you know, the ones that look like they're frozen in time, I'm gonna turn my ramen into one of those frozen moments, using a piece of clear plastic from toy packaging. I've already covered this in another video, so I'll link it down below. But the basic idea is that you connect a clear piece of packaging with the resin at the top to your utensil and at the bottom to your food. You drip the resin down the packaging and cure it so that you can't really see the plastic anymore. And that's how I turn this into an ultra rare Mini Brands frozen moment. I mean, it's the rarest. I'm the only one that has one. And I guess now, if you really like it, you can have one too. Okay, so like I said, this is gonna be the longest one that I do, I promise. We're gonna go much faster from here on out. Final thoughts, on a scale of 1 to 10, I give the official product a 4, but I give my version a 10. But I have faith that they're gonna get better from here. So let's see what's next. The award for Mini Brand Recipe with the longest name has a clear winner, coming in at 139.46 grams, the vegan chocolate mousse with raspberries and almond crumb. I am so excited about this recipe for so many reasons. First of all, we get 2 kinds of resin. Second, when I was in high school, Whole Foods made the best vegan chocolate mousse. It was amazing. I was vegetarian and I love the idea of vegan food, but that wasn't why I got it. It wasn't because it was vegan. It was just the best chocolate mousse I've ever had in my entire life. It didn't matter that it was vegan, that was just a bonus. But anyway, if anybody has the recipe for the Whole Foods vegan chocolate mousse, because they don't make it anymore. But oh my god, this recipe, making this, it made me crave it so bad. Things first, Zuru, you're killing it. 2 kinds of resin. We've got a syrup, but first we've got chocolate mousse. And it comes in a container. Oh my god, this is so exciting. Look at this. There is a piping tip on the top of this. That should theoretically mean that when we squeeze this resin container, we're going to get a light, fluffy resin, and it's going to be able to come out in a shape that it's going to hold. Like, look at this. I mean, that opens us up to an entirely new world of miniatures, and making Miniverse go way further than they've ever gone with their desserts. I've got to say, I actually did this on my own twice before, but I have been waiting, holding my breath for Miniverse to come out with this. But Zuru, you did it first, and that's awesome. Good for you for realizing that crafters and creators like variety, that we like to do different things, that we like to try new things, because this is awesome. Okay, I have to stop gushing. I have to put on the brakes. For real though. Do you remember early on in the video when I said that there was a problem with this series, like a real problem, like a potentially product ending problem? That was not clickbait. It was during this, the second product that I made, that I found the fatal flaw with this product. And I'm serious, it's a big deal. First though, since I'm going through this recipe so quickly, I have to tell you specifically what I found out is troubling about this particular recipe. Okay, so first, as nice as the chocolate mousse came out of the container, even before I started putting the ingredients on top of it, it collapsed into itself. It didn't hold its shape, unfortunately. Now I know what you're saying, so just cure it as soon as you put the product in the bowl. Unfortunately, that didn't work. I actually put it under the UV light immediately, and the resin did not harden. It did harden in the air about 5 to 10 minutes later, but it shows the product in the instructions being cured by the UV light, but the UV light did not make any difference. And unfortunately, since I was trying to put toppings onto a resin that wasn't curing, both the shape of my dessert fell apart and a lot of my toppings started sinking down into the mousse, which resulted in me getting a ton of this stuff on my hands. It's sticky, but it didn't ultimately stain, so I'm not that upset. Sad that my dessert collapsed, annoying that it got all over my hands. But none of that is like product-endingly bad. So what is the problem? That issue only came out once I opened the syrup. Okay, so first I think it's really important to mention that these resin bottles are much softer and more pliable than the bottles that are used in the Miniverse, which is great because it makes them easier to squeeze. You can theoretically get the resin out a lot easier. I mean, even with the chronic pain in my hands, I was completely able to squeeze this whipped cream bottle until every last bit of the mousse came out. I actually noticed the problem as soon as I went to put the top on the resin bottle. You know, the little pour spout, the ones that were completely useless in the Miniverse products because you couldn't actually squeeze the resin out. I'm not sure if you can see the problem with this bottle in this photo, but I'm holding it up specifically so you can see the gap. And again, I get it, you're probably saying, okay, Christy, we'll just screw the top on better. Right, but here's the problem. None of the lids fit the resin bottles. And I don't just mean the pour spouts. Once you peel back this little metallic paper flap that keeps the bottle sealed, even the original lid that came on the bottle will not screw on. I shouldn't say it won't screw on, because it will, but it just will keep going and going. It never reaches a place where it's tight or sealed at all. The lid just turns and turns and it's almost like the screw-on ridges are stripped away, but that's not what's happening. They're clearly still there, it's just that the lid does not fit the bottle properly. None of the lids fit any of the resin bottles properly. You can just spin them and spin them. And this is a really serious problem, because this doesn't only mean that you can't store your leftover resin. This means anyone who tries to use the squeeze tops is going to have this happen. I don't know if you can tell, but I was barely putting any pressure on that bottle. This one was a controlled test. I was actually sure that the top would fall off because I could see the bottle bulging. And unfortunately, it happened to me multiple times with multiple different projects when I wasn't expecting it and resin dumped everywhere. Not only is it not good to be getting that resin all over your hands, but if it ruins the product you paid for, it kind of makes it useless. After I couldn't get the mousse to cure, I tried putting the syrup on top thinking, okay, so maybe you're supposed to use only that one and cure that, even though the picture shows otherwise. Unfortunately, the resin exploded all down the side of my container, all over my counter, and like most of the syrup dumped out all over my placemat. I mean, check this one out, because I'm going to actually screw it tight on there so that you can see that I'm trying everything I possibly can to make sure the lid is on nice and tight. I mean, I know you can't tell how hard I'm turning it, but I'm barely giving it any pressure, and it just spins and spins and spins. There's no stopping. Now watch what happens when I actually try to use some of the product. It doesn't take long at all. I mean, I did speed this up a little, but it doesn't take long at all before the lid just is falling off. And especially if you're not expecting it, the resin's gonna dump everywhere. The other major problem with a lot of the bottles, as soon as you try to squeeze it to have it come out the pour spout, the resin would shoot up over the edges of the top of the bottle. I think that's what's forcing the lids off. Oh, I don't have any resolution to this. I'm calling Zuru. I am addressing it because all 3 of the cases that I got are like this. Other than a product recall, I really don't know what Zuru can do, but I did want to warn people before they go out and buy these en masse that there's a big problem. Please don't let your kids play with these because you're going to end up with resin everywhere, at least until they get this situation resolved. Okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to completely kill the vibe of this video and like totally drag you down. But I was also afraid if I waited until later in the video that a lot of people might miss this message. If anyone has contact information for Zuru, like this is a really big deal. I'm definitely going to put forth the effort to try and get a hold of somebody. If you end up buying any of these in March 2024, like right after they've released, please be sure to let me know. Are you having the same problems? And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Despite the discovery of the bottle problem, I give this one 8 out of 10. Really unique and it looks very tasty. Ooh, I have a really good idea. Let's redeem ourselves from the last one. Let's try another one with the whipped cream resin so we can really see it done well. Weighing in at 152.68 grams, cherry chocolate cake. With a thick layer of the fluffy whipped cream resin, 2 layers of moist chocolate cake, and a decorative top, this is the perfect recipe to test our skills. I'm really excited to check out this one. Not a ton to this cake. It's actually pretty simple, but it looks really good, and it looks very realistic. I'm also not going off the rails. I'm basically sticking to the instructions on this one. And in the event that there was something wrong with a specific resin with the last one, I want to see how challenging it is to use this whipped cream style resin. How hard is it to actually get it to hold its shape? Is it possible to get it to hold that piped look of icing? Because if so, this is going to be a game changer for miniature pastries going forward. To start, this is the first time we're getting 2 separate cake layers in a product like this, so that alone is awesome. And have we actually had any chocolate cake from Miniverse? I don't think so. Oh, we did have the chocolate bundt cake, but it's very different. And obviously it goes without saying that you could always switch up the fruit, like put strawberries on it, or you could leave the fruit off altogether. Okay, so frosting the inside cake layer is less high stakes because you're not going to actually see the pattern in the frosting. So I did that one first, almost as practice, and it does seem to be holding its shape really nicely. I'm not really sure why they have us putting half cherries inside because when you close the cake together, you're really not going to see any of these, but I did it anyway. This white whipped cream frosting definitely seems stiffer and is holding its shape much better. And the frosting didn't collapse under the weight of the half cherries either. I mean, they are tiny, but it still looked awesome. Yeah, and that thick, fluffy frosting is holding up the top cake layer really nicely. I mean, it could absolutely be mistaken for like a cookie. It looks great. And this chocolate looks so real. And I love the fact that the chocolate resin is thick enough that it's not just like flowing off the sides of the cake. Like you can cause controlled drips like the ones you want, but it's also thick enough that it'll just coat the top of the cake, which is really nice. And you don't get many, but these little star sprinkles are really cute. The packaging is a little plain and basic, but I do love the sprinkles. And again, some of what we're putting on the cake is gonna get covered up by the icing decorations, but the next time I make one, I'll probably just skip putting them on, so I can save them for another project. Okay, this part is definitely a little bit challenging because the nozzle is small, but it's not really small enough to make those like dainty little decorative dollops, but you know, I'm doing my best. And they do seem to be holding up to the cherries. If this one is indicative of the quality of the rest of the series, I can tell you I'm going to be a very, very happy person. Now, the one thing I will say, the white icing did not stiffen under the UV light. It just hardens in the air. The chocolate resin is so convincing that I'm a little concerned about actual children because I can totally see some of them trying to taste this. I'm a fully grown, albeit neurodivergent adult, but even I had thought about putting this in my mouth because it very much looks like real food. And if I were to rate this experience out of 10, I would definitely give it like a 9.5. This one was awesome. I think you're really going to enjoy this new kind of resin. But hey, don't take my word for it. Go pick one up. Next, let's take a look at the stuffed pork loin and roast potatoes at 132.01 grams. So first, I really want to say something. I know that some of my feedback may seem a little rough or a little negative, but it really isn't. I really do love these products. I mean, even the ones that had some flaws or some problems, I mean, considering the major flaw that is running through the whole product line, I still really like what's going on here. And one of my absolute favorite things about this series is that we're getting like real entrees, like real plates of food, like a dinner, an entree that you could sit down at a restaurant and enjoy. I mean, I guess since they're MasterChef meals, that makes sense. But like, that's one of the main things that was missing from Miniverse was that we were getting like snacks and drinks. And I mean, don't get me wrong, those things are fun. Like I'll still get so excited to make the mac and cheese. I mean, even all the cookies and cupcakes. I mean, it's really been fun. But like, I'm really glad that we're getting some real actual food. And even though I'm a much bigger fan of pigs than pork chops, I still really like this meal. I think it looks fantastic, and I mean the printing on the meat is just really impressive. I do love the details that we're seeing with these ingredients, even if they weren't necessarily all the right shape or, you know, loose like I prefer the ingredients to be. I do really appreciate their attention to detail. I do think that this particular item is a little light on substance. I think it needs more vegetables or something. I was a little bit confused by the 2 sauces. Like, this would make sense to me if there was like mashed potatoes involved. I think they really missed the opportunity to use mashed potatoes. I think it looks good, but but I feel like the plate just feels a little bit too empty. It seems just a little bit weird to have so much sauce. There's definitely a lot of resin left over. But I did follow the directions on this one, exactly according to the instructions, and this is definitely what it's supposed to look like. So it's not that I did anything wrong, maybe I have a personal preference. I mean, I do like the fact that with the sauces, you can really go all out and like add those chef touches, like the brush mark. You could use your silicone brush from your, what was the Christmas set? Was it the elf spaghetti? No, the turkey. You could use that turkey baster brush and dip it in the sauce and do those like smears of sauce around the edges of the plate, get really fancy with it. Really glad that the demi-glaze and the tomato-based sauce are two completely different colors and two different consistencies. It really does add to the look of the final plate. Like, it gives it a lot more texture and action. At first I thought it was way too much sauce, but when I'm really looking at it, especially now with the glaze on top of it, no, I actually think they did an awesome job. And it just occurred to me that I'm really jealous of Gordon Ramsay. Hot take, I know, but getting to taste all this amazing food all the time. And as neat as this one is, I can't in good conscience give it a rating because, like I said, I've got that thing for pigs, so. But in all seriousness, it is pretty good. There's a good amount of detail, and it's significantly different from anything we've ever gotten with Miniverse. Next up, a pair of summer fruit tarts. Their average weight is 142.08 grams. Compared to the berry and lemon tarts that we've seen with Miniverse, these are very, very similar. I mean, obviously all tarts are pretty much the same. You've got a tart crust, you've got some filling of some sort, which in this case is resin, and then you've got some fruit. So the ones that we've seen with Miniverse have been very like specifically themed, like, strawberry, blueberry, or strawberry, raspberry, whatever the berry ones were. This one is a summer fruit mix. So you've got strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, and kiwi. And it's good. It looks great. It looks like a real fruit tart. The fruit is a bit bigger than the Miniverse products, which is fine. It's just a little bit different, but it's not like a lot bigger. So I think the kiwi is the only thing that really stands out because it looks a little out of place. It looks a little comically too large. But you'll have to give me your opinion. I mean, what do you think? And I know I said it before, but this new whipped cream like resin is really going to be a game changer. I recently stocked up on polymer clay and a bunch of miniature plastic and ceramic dishes, like candy dishes and milkshake glasses and regular like to-go cups. And I also got some air dry clay and acrylic paint. I'm getting ready to go on a miniature food making binge. Should I make a video of that, of like crafting with all those supplies? Because I've still got a few more things I want to gather. But I haven't done anything like that for the channel yet. Would you guys want to see me customize some Miniverse and some Mini Create products? I could do completely new concepts, and I could also like make my own version of things that both Miniverse and Minibrands Create have made. What kind of foods would you guys like to see? And while you're at it, while we're discussing it, what do you want to see in the next Minibrands Create line or the next Miniverse series? Miniverse Diner Series 5. Seen some leaks, there's going to be a Miniverse like art series, so I'm really excited about that. I've already seen the leaks of the resin. But what kind of minis are you really looking forward to? Like, what can you just not get enough of? For real. And it's not, like, I'm not monetized yet. I'm not just trying to drive up engagement. I genuinely want to know, what do you guys like? What kind of miniatures really excite you? Damn, these came out so good. When it comes to realism, Minibrands Create takes the cake. They takes the pastry, the tart, the dessert, whatever. But seriously, these are much more realistic looking. Even the individual elements are definitely more true to life. Now, I just hope they can fix the bottle situation really soon. Not being able to use the pour spouts or save any of your leftover resin is really going to be a problem. And if they start leaking in the capsules before people even open them, that's going to be worse. Tarts are simple yet beautiful. I'm giving them a 7.5 out of 10. With 6 items left to go, we've got the Tropical Fruit Parfait, weighing in at 123.09 grams. Right from the onset, this is probably the item that inspired me the least. We've seen parfaits and fruit cups done a variety of ways. I almost want to say it's been done to death. And in real life, I actually like a parfait. I used to get the ones at McDonald's way back in the day. It felt like the healthier, fresher option. You were eating fruit on the go. Nowadays, other than like Wawa, you really don't see parfaits out and about too much. And this parfait is a unconventional assortment of things that I wouldn't necessarily put together. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of hope for this one because with all the pieces and parts that are here, I just don't see how this is going to get any better. So what's in the MasterChef Fruit and Yogurt Parfait? Well, to start, mango and pineapple chunks. We've seen pineapple before in the Miniverse, but mango's a new fruit. Another interesting and unique thing about this parfait is that it actually comes with 4 cake pieces. It's basically a really small cake in a round container that's already pre-cut. I feel like it's kind of an unimportant aspect of the parfait, and if it were me, I would actually suggest leaving this completely out of your build, because once you put the resin in and the fruit, you completely lose the cake pieces. You can't see any aspect of them through the sides of the glass, and it's basically like you've now wasted these 4 light brown, toasty looking baked cake pieces that you could use for a bunch of different things. You could even frost them and make a teeny tiny birthday cake or something. Like, to put them in the bottom, the Parfait glass just seems like a total waste. I did put them in here just so you could see what they look like, but I really think that it was ultimately a waste of this ingredient entirely. Another thing that's unique to this product as opposed to the Miniverse is that it actually tells you exactly how many fruit pieces to put in the cup. So it'll say like 4 pineapple chunks and 5 mango slices. Obviously, you have the option to disregard or to alter your recipes in any way you want to. I find it interesting that they give you these very specific instructions. I often see people complaining that their Miniverse items didn't come with enough resin. A lot of these complaints seem to be centered around the lifestyles ones, especially the candles. I think that's because the resin is so much thicker, and I'll tell you how I solved it. I actually just cut the top edge of the resin containers open, and then I would use kind of a popsicle stick to gently scoop out all the resin, and I always had plenty for all of my projects. I think the problem is that people were squeezing the containers and just saying, oh, well, if no resin is coming out, then there's clearly not enough resin for me to use. But if you did take either a pair of scissors or an X-Acto and slice open that very thin plastic, it was very easy. There was never a situation in which I didn't have enough resin to finish my project. Normally, I actually had extra. With every Minibrands Create that I opened and built, I had plenty of resin to do the project. The only problem I ran into with the resin was consistently that the bottles just do not seal. You can't put the pour spouts on the bottles, and you can't put the lids back on them either. They just will not screw shut. But getting back to the Parfait, after putting the cake and some mango and pineapple in the bottom, you're supposed to cover it with a layer of resin about 2/3 full and then cure it. Then you add a little bit more resin, a bit more fruit, some mint for garnish, and finally, then you're supposed to put chocolate sprinkles, apparently. I'm a little perplexed by that one, honestly. And again, their packaging is very clean and modern and crisp and a little bit plain, but I do find myself disappointed that there doesn't seem to be enough of certain ingredients, especially not if you like to hang on to a little bit extra like I do. Really did feel like they went very light on the fruit. I mean, I think there was only about 8 pieces of mango and maybe 10 pieces of pineapple. And as far as sprinkles, there was maybe 25 sprinkles in the whole container. I actually have the Parfait sitting next to me. I'm gonna count the sprinkles because I used all of them. 22. The container came with 22 tiny sprinkles. So this seems to be a case-by-case basis, but I will say there have been a few items that I do feel like Minibrands went a little bit short on the ingredients, and the sprinkles are definitely one of them. By contrast, with Miniverse products, accessory items like sprinkles almost always come with full containers, so you've got plenty left over for future projects. All in all, the Parfait's fine. It's not very exciting, especially taking into consideration that this whole thing is so light on product. There's nothing left over, no extras. Oh, and the final kicker, it's like so visually unappealing when it's finished. The yogurt is more of a transparent clear than it is like an actual yogurt color. The fruit, the sprinkles, and the cake, they really add nothing. Bland colors for everything, a boring vessel. At the end of the day, the mint garnish was the only part of it I liked. Hopefully this will be my lowest rated mini of the series, because I couldn't bring myself to give it any higher than a 2. So what do you think? Fair rating, or was I too harsh? The next item up calls itself a strawberry cake, but it's really a strawberry shortcake. 2-layer vanilla cake with whipped cream and strawberries in the middle and whipped cream and strawberries on top. Weighing in around 97.76 grams, the strawberry shortcake is much lighter than anything else, so it's very easy to identify. Not only is a strawberry shortcake a cake that we've already seen in the Miniverse world, but this cake is almost exactly identical to a cake we've already built in this series. It's almost exactly the same as the chocolate and cherry cake. Instead of putting chocolate layer cakes together, you're doing vanilla, and instead of putting cherries inside, you're putting strawberries on top. They're literally one and the same. I'm going to do something a little different with mine. I'm going to cut a slice out of my cake. Using an X-Acto knife with a fresh blade, I'm just going to take a slice out of the top and bottom, making sure that the 2 slices line up with one another. It's nice because after the fact, you can put the separate slice of cake on a plate and you can serve it to someone. It just gives your miniature that extra motion. Instead of just being a whole static cake that's sitting on a server, you have a cake that you're able to serve to someone. Or enjoy a slice yourself. As you can see, I spread the whipped cream resin all over the bottom layer of cake, and then you place the sliced strawberries around the outside before placing the other layer of sponge cake on top. Then we're going to spread another layer of the whipped cream resin on the top of the cake. If you're not sure how good you'll be using the piping tip on the top of the whipped cream resin, then the first resin that you should apply to the cake is the part that you're going to spread nice and flat anyway, like the layer that goes on the inside of the cake. Because if you don't get that nice crisp design that comes from the piping tip, it doesn't really matter. Let that be your practice with the piping tip. Or if the piping tip won't actually stay on, I suggest squeezing it with 2 fingers while you apply the resin if you really want it to come out in that star shape so that the top doesn't pop off. At least until Zuru fixes this issue. So what do you think of this cake? What do you think of it compared to the strawberry shortcake that we saw from Miniverse? I wasn't a big fan of the outside of the Miniverse strawberry shortcake, so I actually think I like this one a lot better. I definitely love the whipped cream resin. It adds a whole new layer of realism. Of course, I really prefer the cake made with the slice taken out, but you could just follow the instructions. This is also a great thing to experiment with if you get doubles, especially now that you know the weight code hack. You can buy a couple of them on purpose. Make one with a slice taken out, make the other one complete. Or try something completely different and make individual servings, because I really like the whipped cream resin so much, and it really makes this look like an actual honest-to-God strawberry shortcake. I have to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. If you're only going to get one mini from this series, I might recommend this one. So who did it better, Zuru or MGA? Let me know down in the comments. We're winding down, we've only got a few left. Up next, the chocolate Profiteroles. But we can just call them cream puffs to save my sanity. You'll find them in capsules about 134.51 grams. So we're about to get fancy here for a second. What is a profiterole anyway? A profiterole, or a cream puff, is a French choux pastry ball typically filled with a sweet, mostly whipped cream filling. Sometimes they have custard or pastry cream or even ice cream inside, but most often you'll find them garnished with chocolate sauce or even caramel or a dusting of powdered sugar. The first thing I'm going to do is take the cream puffs out and put them in the bowl. The next step is pouring heavy cream into the serving dish in the space around the cream puffs. I really wish we would have gotten the cream puff pastries and the whipped cream resin so that we could actually put the cream puffs together ourselves. It just feels like there's not a whole lot to do with this recipe. There's not much to actually build or create because they give us the already ready-made cream puffs in the bag. I'm glad that we got 2 different kinds of resin, but I'm not sure it was really necessary for this specific recipe. I think we would have been fine with just the chocolate sauce. I would have rather had the whipped cream for sure. Maybe they did try to go that route, and maybe they thought working with the small pastries was too difficult. After all, the macarons in the Miniverse were really hard to put together without making a huge mess. You really don't need that much to put around the cream puffs in the bowl, so you're going to end up with some resin left over from this recipe for sure. Even though the recipe assembly is an easy one, it does look nice when it's complete. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Not bad at all, but it could be a little better. Next up, we have another delicious looking entree, the Glazed Lamb. This one weighs about 123.77 grams. So let's take a look at this delicious entree. And when I say delicious, like, it legitimately looks like real food. It is so appetizing. And I was a vegetarian for years. I'm not even that big into meat, but this recipe looks so good, especially if you take the extra time to make sure that your plate is really well arranged. Speaking of, hey, let's get some decorative glaze down on the plate first. Then we need to take a look at these vegetables. You could follow the directions the way they are, or you could cut them up into small pieces like I did. But either way you do it, you're going to want to arrange them in the center of the plate. Next, add a little bit more of that glaze to hold everything together in the center. Now let's get out the part of this recipe that really made me hungry. These bone-in lamb chops look amazing. To copy the recipe instructions, we should arrange them on the outside of the plate with the bones in the center, overlapping one another. Assembly of this is really quick, easy, and there's not a lot of steps. It's a little too simple, actually. I also feel like they could have given us a lot more of the vegetables, but you can't argue that the final plate looks so good. I am so hungry after making this, I need to take a break and get something to eat. For the simplicity of the recipe and the fact that we don't get a lot of extras, I'm going to give it an 8. Maybe an 8.5. It so easily could have been a 10 though. I think I'm going to make a frozen moment out of my next one and cut some bite-sized pieces of the meat up so the plate looks like it's in the middle of being eaten. Okay, last one left before the ultra rare. We've got an almond and apricot cheesecake coming in at 141.64 grams. So if you've been a Miniverse fan since the beginning, then you know that we've seen cheesecake before. And I have to admit that when I first opened this one, the little bag of teeny tiny almond slivers sent me over the edge. There's just something so satisfying about something that is so perfectly tiny and so accurate. So let's open this up and get the recipe going. First inside, we've got the actual cheesecake, and this looks just like the ones from the Miniverse, more or less. And here's the bag of teeny tiny almond slices I was talking about. We're supposed to begin the recipe by sprinkling the almonds on top of the cheesecake. And of course, I'm obsessive, so I needed tweezers to make them perfectly spaced. Then the idea is that you cover the top with a resin. This makes the cheesecake look like it has a glaze on top. I was afraid it was going to mess up the placement of all those perfectly little placed almonds, but nope, it ended up okay. Even though, if I'm being honest, the top fell off the squeeze bottle. I really hope Zuru gets this fixed soon. With some carefully placed strips, I think everything looks perfect. I'm kind of laughing at myself because when I first take a look at this can, I couldn't figure out how to open it. But I did eventually figure out that you just pull the top off. Just get that out of the way. And then let's get these apricot slices on top of the cake. There we go. That'll do it. And the only thing that's really left is to cut ourselves a slice and enjoy it. So, what did I think of it? The recipe is really simple, but what you get in the end really does look good. There's nothing really new and different or challenging about this recipe, so I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. The cheesecake is a little bit bigger than the ones from the Miniverse, and I really like the detail. I also think it's great that we got a flavor that's a little more unconventional. It would have been cool to see some whipped cream on the top, but I mean, we've seen that before. I think I'm just partial to the new whipped topping resin. So, do you have the cheesecakes from Miniverse? Are you looking forward to getting the cheesecake from this set? Let me know which one you think looks better. And which one would you rather try in real life? Are you as amused as I am by the tiny little almond slices? Alright, well, we're down to the final one, and that's the ultra rare apple pie. You're going to want to write this one down because I know you're going to be hunting for it. The average weight is 129.68 grams. And with 21 balls to a case, there is not one in every case, so you are going to have to hunt for it. So here we have it, folks, the hard to find and ultra rare apple pie. I was lucky enough to find mine in the first case that I found in stores, but I didn't actually get one in the second and third case that I opened. The very first thing I noticed when I opened it was this adorable ice cream. I know we did a ton of one-on-one comparisons when we opened up the ramen, but I really want to go through this one in detail because we've had a Miniverse apple pie before. And since that one wasn't ultra rare or super hard to find, is this one really worth hunting down? As you can see, we get more of a pint of ice cream with just 2 little scoops in it instead of a half gallon with 5 scoops. Not that that's terrible because you are getting the pie, but it's definitely a size difference. And the ice cream, the actual ice cream scoops, are way smaller. As you can see, you're getting a much smaller scoop. Okay, let's put that aside and let's move on to the next thing, the pie crust. And probably the most exciting revelation of opening this entire product series, it was that this is obviously a scented product. I can tell because it's in that foil wrapper that Minibrands always uses with their scented items. We saw it first in the foodie series too. And sure enough, inside we have the 2 pieces of pie crust, the actual shell and then the top, the lattice pie crust shell. Oh my god, it smells so good. It's not just like a cinnamon smell, like it would be so easy for them to just do an overwhelming cinnamon smell, but no, it's actually like a delicious baked goods smell and cinnamon. And they definitely nailed it, not just with the look, but also the coloring. We get this great big large plate to put it on, and we also get a pie server, and we've definitely seen these before. And side by side with the ones that we got from NGA, they're pretty much indistinguishable. I know, riveting stuff, you guys. The Minibrands one is in my left hand, by the way. So let's remind ourselves of the apple pie that the Miniverse made. Pretty similar in size, shape, you name it, but the other one doesn't have a good scent. Okay, so let's get this thing assembled. I've got out my trusty X-Acto knife, and you know what that means. I'm making a pie with a slice cut out. Just be really careful doing this because you really could mess up your entire pie. All right, there we go. The top and the bottom line up. Oh yeah, this is what the apple pie crust looks like from the Miniverse brand. We actually only got the lattice top on the cherry pie from them. I'm not really sure which one I prefer. I think they both look great, honestly. All right, let me get this other pie out of here to make room. Now, what's next? Oh yeah, I guess we need the apples, huh? So I think I like the style of the packaging from Minibrands much better, but I don't like the fact that their packaging is much bigger. Either way, when it comes down to it, the apples look almost exactly the same. Hang on, let me get a close-up here for you. Ooh, maybe I need to invest in a top-down cam. Okay, you're right, let's not get crazy. Already takes me long enough to put these videos out, the last thing I need is multiple cameras. So next up is filling the pie. We're going to make a mixture of the apples and the resin, which is not scented, unfortunately, but I really think that might be impossible. A little bit more great news about the Minibrands products. You know how they have that little foil wrapper at the top of the resin container, and it's like impossible to open? I mean, really impossible when it comes to the Miniverse. You can actually peel it back and open it up with your fingers. So that is probably one of the best things I found out about this entire series. Of course, you still need to find somewhere to put the sticky thing. But once you've done that, you're good to go. Now, for obvious reasons that we've already discussed multiple times, I didn't put the squeeze top on this bottle, and that was really unfortunate because it would have been really helpful. Oh, don't get me wrong, I tried to, but it fell off as soon as I squeezed the resin bottle, so I just ended up pouring it. And then it's time to add in the apple slices, and I actually mixed them in with a toothpick. You really want to make sure they're all good and coated. So it's not only going to help your pie stick together and make it look its best, but it's also going to help keep the top on. Just take your time, get your pie really full, make sure that it's all nice and lined up. And if you've got a slice cut out like I do, then you're really going to need to be careful to make sure that you get the pie. You're going to really need to make sure that you be careful so that you get the apple slices right up into the edge. And before you know it, it's going to be time to cure that thing. I know, I look great in glasses. Seriously though, folks, be careful around the UV light. Now, I had multiple pieces to do because I also did the pie slice. If you decide to cut a slice out of your pie, it could be a little bit tricky. You just really have to be careful. You're working on a really tiny piece. I suggest that you hold it on the side and fill it with apple slices and resin and cure it a little bit at a time until you fill the whole piece up. And this is what I ended up with. I can already tell you this is a favorite, and it's definitely getting an 11 out of 10. I also think my slice came out adorable. Guys, I've been editing for 3 days. It's time to wrap it up. So what do you think? You've got to tell me everything. Are you in love with this brand? Are you going to buy all of them? Are you going to just get certain ones? And if so, which ones? Do you care that they made some of the same ones that the Miniverse made? Or are you excited to see the comparisons? Do you have a favorite, and is it also the apple pie? All right, I'm going to have a snack of apple pie, of course, and then I'm going to get some sleep. So I really want to hear what you guys think. I cannot wait. So how soon are you going to use these hacks? Are you going out shopping tomorrow? Oh, wait, I forgot the really important thing. You need the DPCI number. That way, when you head over to Target, you can actually ask them if they have them in stock. Well, you know me. Ask and you shall receive. It's 086029598. All right, guys, that's it for me. Please subscribe and check out my Instagram at Crafty Magic Dolls, and I hope to see you on my next one.